just finished Vaishnava Thakur, but
okay.
yeah, whatever you.
Did everybody sing?
I don't remember hasn't sung. Chachi hasn't sung yet.
You want to sing one song? Yeah.
200.
It's streaming now, the live stream.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is there a song that you have not sung? Or
We didn't sing anything for Nityananda or Mahaprabhu yet.
Yeah, we're kind of just
You
getting
did not
started.
sing for
No,
Nityananda?
Vaishnava
We
Thakur
only
was
sang
the
it
last
for
one.
him.
Okay.
But yeah.
Does everyone have the page? You have the page? Okay.
Pita Balama Kali Bhavana Koya.
Pita Balama Kali Bhavana Koya. Pita Balama Kali Baba
No han cantado la de Mi que no me pongo, ¿no?
No. Like half of them? Something.
India.
120.
She's looking for a song for Nityananda.
129.
Oh, super.
22.
1, 2, 2. Yeah, 1, 2, 2.
1, 2, 2.
Nitai para kamala.
do you have a favorite song? I remember you were studying Sharanagati before. Was there any special song that really attracted you? Do you remember?
No, my mind's gone blank.
Okay, I'll pick a song that maybe Pandita can sing. Maybe Atma Niveda to sing. It's a very sweet song from Sharanagati.
972. Atma Nivedana, Atma Nivedana, Diyavane Kori, Atma Nivedana, Diyavane Kori. Tadi joyful by surrendering myself at your holy feet. Unhappiness has gone away, and there are no more anxieties. I see joy in all directions. Your 2 lotus feet are reservoirs of immortal nectar, where one may live free from sorrow and fear. I have found peace there now, and have given up the fear of worldly existence. I shall render service in your household, and not endeavor to enjoy the fruits of that service, but rather I shall strive for whatever pleases you, fully devoted to your lotus feet. Troubles encountered in your service shall be the cause of great happiness, for in your devotional service, joy and sorrow are equally great riches. Both destroy the misery of ignorance. I have completely forgotten all past history by feeling great joy in my mind. I am most certainly yours, and you are indeed mine. What need is there for any other treasure? Bhakti Vinod, diving into the ocean of bliss, devotes all his efforts for your service and dwells in your house according to your wishes. Jai Shri Bhakti. This is very nice. I am most certainly yours, and you are indeed mine. What need is there of any other treasure? Very beautiful.
Yeah, these songs, they're like windows actually, like giving us some glimpses in the hearts of the surrendered souls. The joy, the spiritual joy, spiritual beauty, spiritual love that they experience. You don't have to sit so back, there's lots of space. You come forward. And we have this beautiful book, Shishi Papana Jivanamrita, right? That was compiled by our grandfather Guru, Srila Bhakti Devi Dasi Maharaj. Shishi Papana Jivanamrita. And it's a very beautiful title. Welcome. Prapana is a word for a surrendered soul. And Jiva is referring to the living entity, the living soul. And Amrita means nectar. And also means immortality, right? It has this double meaning. And so it can be translated in slightly different ways, but essentially, the Amrita, the nectar, that the Jivas, the souls who are prapana, who are surrendered, what they experience. So it's also translated sometimes as the life nectar of the surrendered souls. It can also be like that. Sanskrit has that broadness. And so all of these beautiful songs and prayers that we have, they're like windows into the hearts and the lives of these very great souls, Just as in this world we're dependent upon food, water, air, right, to maintain our existence. These very great souls, they're dependent on some finer substance, right? This type of spiritual nectar, that's what's sustaining them. They're so deeply situated within the plane of Atma, and even beyond. Actually, to reach Atma, self-realization, that's really a general thing. Once one comes to the school, to the Bhagavat school, right, to the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the conclusion of the Vedic instruction. Once one comes to understand something of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, then that you will understand, actually, to come to the plane of soul, that is a very general thing. That is actually a dry thing. But just as in this world, when we are under the influence of the material energy, we're seeking joy, we're seeking pleasure, and so many objects of the senses, right? But the message of Bhagavatam is that there's also a spiritual rasa, right? There's also as in this world we experience and we seek after prakrita rasa, means material joy, ecstasy, fulfillment. So there's also a prakrita rasa. The senses do not have to be rejected, right? It is not that. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Deva Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Beautiful garland. The senses do not need to be rejected, right? Joy, love, attachment, relationships. Normally, when one comes to enter into a serious practice of spiritual life, they think, I have to become detached, right? I have to give up the pursuit of the senses, and all these emotions, they just bring me down and complicate my life, right? And so many things I enjoy, good music, good food, nice relationships, all these things, they're just complicating my life. They're entangling me in this cycle of birth and death, samsara. So I have to reject it all. I have to get away from it all, right? And some people manage to do that. But Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, actually, that is not the problem. The problem is that you are directing those natural tendencies for love, beauty, attachment, relationships, joy, pleasure. It is normal to want pleasure, actually. The soul naturally is seeking after pleasure. But the problem is that we are misdirecting that, right? We are misdirecting that natural inclination of the soul, right? And so the Vedanta Sutra, right, which is widely celebrated amongst all Vedic schools of thought, and we recognize as the penultimate Vedic text that begins with this expression, atato brahma jigyasa. Right? Now search after spirit. Right? Now you finish with all your escapades in the world of mundane enjoyment. You realize it's all troublesome. Now give it up. Now search after spirit. Right? But as we just said, ultimately just to search after spirit, to search after soul, atma, that is a little dry, ultimately. So then the final text, the next text, concluding text of the Vedas, it is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says there, Bhagavatam has replaced the search for Brahma, the search for spirit, with the search for rasa. So tato rasa jigyasa, now search after rasa. But spiritual rasa, not the mundane rasa, ecstasy, joy, pleasure of this world, but search after the spiritual joy, the spiritual pleasure that comes out of a life of dedication. That is something else. The only problem here is we're searching after a joy that comes from a type of exploitation. Right? And we may not think of ourselves as exploiters. Right? We may not think like that. We're not. I think everyone in this room is very good. You're all very good people, right? You're not, trying to exploit the environment. But it is actually something that we've automatically become involved in because we're in these encasements, right? In this world at present. And consciously or unconsciously, we're living in this world of exploitation. Consciously or unconsciously, we are seeking pleasure through our senses, which is automatically actually causing disturbance in this environment, whether we like it or not. It is the nature of this plane, right? The nature of this plane is such that if we get a promotion or if we get happiness, it's always at the expense of some other living entity. It is how this world is built. Even when we breathe, it is the nature of this world. So somehow or other we've become entangled in this world, which has at its basis the spirit of exploitation, selfishness. But now we have some consciousness, right? Now we have some level of awakenment, enlightenment. We can try to direct our attention to the real need of our soul, which is spiritual rasa, which is spiritual fulfillment and joy. Right? And in Srimad Bhagavatam, the third verse is describing this in a very beautiful way. You know, it compares all of the Vedas to a wish-fulfilling tree. Nigama kalpa turur galitam phalam begins like this, and it's saying that all of the Vedic texts, they're like a wish-fulfilling tree, which are fulfilling everyone's desires for what are generally the aspirations of this world, right? For dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, right? Dharma referring to duty or religion, but in a generic sense, you know, in a ritualistic sense. Right? And often with some material end in mind, right? Unfortunately. So then artha is wealth, right? And then kam is referring to sense pleasure, the pleasure of the senses. And then finally moksha, right? And that question will come, what's wrong with searching after moksha, right? Well, we just discussed that partially, that moksha will not ultimately satisfy the soul. Just to be free from matter, just to be free from the entanglement of karma and samsara, it will not ultimately satisfy the soul. And the other problem with the aspiration for moksha is that it is liberation, is that it is simply a reaction to facing the consequences of exploitation. Right? That we experience the karmic reactions to our search for joy in this world, and then we become dissatisfied with that. You know, we just want out of the whole game, and so we search after moksha, right? We search after liberation, and so actually neither of these tendencies reflect the natural inclination of the soul, right? So Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, right, in this third verse, that the whole of the Vedas, they're like a wish-fulfilling tree that is fulfilling people's desires for these things, right? But then it says, but what is the fruit on that tree? The message of Srimad Bhagavatam, this is like the fruit on this tree. You know, that this is actually where all of the Vedas are taking us. Thank you, dear. That all of the Vedic texts, although they are, you know, presenting all these different lines of thought and presenting so many lines of progress, their real goal, their real destination is to try to give us the joy of a life of devotion, right? And also particularly it is announcing the glories, the beauty of Sri Krishna. You know, Sri Krishna is the all-attractive, beautiful, charming, most lovable expression of the divinity, right? Krishna means who is all-attractive, right? Krishna means in whom all of our innermost desires, wants, needs can be fulfilled, right? This is what Krishna means, right? And so this is what Srimad Bhagavatam, in a very beautiful way, in a very dignified way, glorious way, poetic way, is presenting this to us, right? This conception of Sri Krishna reality, the beautiful. So this is the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam. You know. And then, you know, since then, you know, we have so many, you know, further advices, instructions, you know, guidances that have come to us from our lineage of teachers. But it is difficult though, because even if we can realize all these things, you know, we may still feel in our heart, but actually, at the end of the day, I have other things to think about, right? Right? Just like in the Shikshashtakam, right, the verses of that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, right, in these 8 verses. Actually, Shachi Didi sang one of those songs that is discussing these verses, right? in the first verse is so, I mean, it's really just astonishingly beautiful, the first verse, describing the glory of the holy name. You know, many of you know that verse, right? Cheto darpanam arjanam bhavamaha devagni nirvapanam. Very beautiful verse, describing how the chanting of the holy name, right? Oh, and this is also another very nice point to consider, that this Srimad Bhagavatam, right, which we consider to be the final Vedic text, you know, this is announcing the glory of Sri Krishna and our natural relationship with him. Then the very last verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it telling us? The very final verse. It's the final verse of the final Vedic text. What is it talking about? The glories of Harinam, the glories of Nam Sankirtan, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Right? Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkha Shamanas Tam Namami Harim Param. Saying, let us all together, you know, sing the glories of this holy name by which all suffering can be dispelled, right? And all joy can be had. Let us all come together and celebrate. You can come in, James. We won't do anything to you, we promise. But Mahaprabhu might steal your heart. Have to watch out for that. You better stay back in the corner there. It's probably a safe option. Don't get too close. He's very charming. So this is the final word, right, in Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of the holy name. Right? And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he's appearing in this world, he's picking up that thread, right, and announcing. Because remember also, Nam Sankirtan, Kirtan, it is the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga, right? And the Srimad Bhagavatam, it was put into writing like sometime the end of the previous age, right? Dwapar Yuga, before Kali Yuga. So it's also like kind of showing us, oh, now is the time, you know, this is the new Dharma, right? This is the final word of Bhagavatam. This is the new Dharma that we all, you know, want to embrace and focus on and so on, right? And then sometime later, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming, and he is showing that, right? Showing the glory of Nam Sankirtan, right? And then in his verses that he wrote himself, the Shikshashtakam, just 8 verses, that's all that he put into writing himself. In that first verse, which I was mentioning, he's very beautifully describing the glory of the holy name and how the holy name will purify us of all of our darkness, and it will give us entrance into our eternal life, right? And that one line is very nice. Shreya Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhavamaha Devagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam. One very beautiful line is there that it compares the holy name to these soothing rays of moonlight, right? That will cause the lotus of our heart to blossom, right? And awaken in our eternal life of beauty and love with our loving Lord, loving guardian. Right? So it's a very beautiful verse. And the last line is very rousing, right? Padam vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. You know, let this wave of Harinam, let this wave of Nam Kirtan, let it be victorious over everything else in this world. Right? In this Kali Yuga, right, this is generally understood to be a dark age, right? And it's an age of ignorance and so many other things, as we can see in the newspaper every day or experience in various ways in our lives. Right? It is an unfortunate age. It is a difficult age. It is a challenging age, right? So in this dark age of Kali Yuga, this holy name has come, you know, to uplift all souls. May that bright wave, may it be victorious over all the darkness of this age. And may it also be victorious over our own heart. Right? So this first verse, it's like this beautiful announcement of the glories of the name and everything that can be had through chanting it sincerely. Right? But then in the second verse is like a kind of antithesis. It's like, oh, well, hang on. The holy name is so wonderful. Everything can come through the chanting of the holy name. But there's just one problem. What's that problem? He's like, yeah, I'm the problem. I don't want it. I don't have any real desire for it. Right? I don't have any natural attachment to that holy name. We may all say, oh, I love kirtan, right? We may all say that, oh, I love kirtan, and so on. But if we really loved it from the depths of our heart, we couldn't stop thinking about anything else, right? Just like if someone is in love with someone, you can't stop thinking about them, right? It's all the time. So why don't I have that type of love for the holy name? Why don't I have that type of attachment? When we hear, how much beauty is there. In one prayer of Rupa Goswami, he's saying, we were going through this a few days ago, that when that name enters my ears, I feel I need millions of ears. 2 ears are not enough. When I chant that name, I think one tongue is not enough. I need millions of tongues. Right? And so much sweetness is there, an inconceivable, never-ending ocean of sweetness. Pratipadam purnamrita svaranam. It is never-ending ocean of sweetness and nectar. So there's this realization, there's so much sweetness here, so much beauty, so much joy, but I'm not tasting that. Right? This is what Mahaprabhu is expressing in the second verse. Nam nama kari bahut anicca sarva shaktis. So then what is the Lord's mercy? He has a plan for that too. What if they don't want it? I'm coming and giving them everything, There's one commentary on Bhagavad Gita that our Gurudev liked, and he had one statement in regards to one of the verses, 1866, the famous verse of Gita. But he says, what Krishna's offering here is nectar on a golden plate, right? Nectar on a golden plate. It doesn't get better than that. So Krishna's giving everything. He's already giving a lot from his side. But then he sees, but some people, they still don't want it. They're still not interested. And so then he has his special agents, who are chasing after people like us, right? We have this one book, beautiful book, Loving Search for the Lost Servants. Loving Search for the Lost Servant. We have Search for Sri Krishna, Reality the Beautiful, which is describing the search from our side, right? But he is also searching for us on his side. How much love, compassion is there? So Loving Search for the Lost Servant. The Lord also feels some pangs of separation from all of his separated parts, And so he has his special agents that he's sending, who are chasing after us. Please, come home, please, please. And I was remembering this morning this one beautiful verse. It is a prayer to Sanatana Goswami, who's one of our teachers. He's one of the 6 Goswamis, they're fairly famous. Some of you know them. But he's making a prayer like this, saying that actually I had no interest in all of this, but you came and you made me. You made me give attention to this. You made me drink this wonderful nectar. Vairagya yug bhakti rasam prayatner payan mam anabipsam andam kripambu dir yapada dukkha duki sanatana stam prabhum ashrayami. And there's this beautiful line, actually every line is beautiful. But one expression which is fairly well known in our community, pada dukkha dukkhi. It means that the nature of the great souls is that their only dukh, their only sorrow, is to see the sorrow of others. Right? They don't have any personal unhappiness. They never experience suffering on account of themselves. Right? But their only suffering is to see the suffering of others. Right? That is their only sorrow. But what is that suffering, actually? Their conception of suffering is not generally what we would conceive of as suffering in this world, right? Deprivation of basic bodily needs, right? That's generally how we would conceive of suffering. But these great souls, they're seeing things in a much more refined way, a much deeper way. And also what is at the root of all suffering in this world, that we have turned away from our true natures, right? That we have turned away from our natural loving relationship with our loving guardian. And so they're seeing, they're not tasting, the joy of a life of surrender, that we are tasting, the great souls, they are tasting, as we said in the beginning, the prapana jivanamrita. They're tasting this special nectar that only the surrendered souls can taste, right? And they can see that anything less than that, it is like garbage. It is, because we may say, actually, I have a very happy life. There are many things that I enjoy, and but we don't know the real standard, actually. Ratnavali, she gave me this shirt, and it's like from this organic clothing company, and it's all natural fibers and natural dyes, and I just tried it on, and I was thinking, another shirt, and I had it sitting in my room for like 2 weeks, and then finally 2 days ago I tried it on. I was like, wow, so nice. And then I thought, wow, now I understand why people spend thousands of dollars on clothes, I've never felt, I've worn so many shirts in my life, but this special fabric and special dye, I was like, wow, I didn't know. I sent her a message. I said, I didn't know that clothing could feel so good. But then there was one problem. I thought, how am I going to be able to wear anything else? Now my standard has gone way up, Like, I didn't even know it was possible to feel like this wearing clothes. It's like, now I get it. Now I get why people are so into their clothes, Also, like you may have eaten Mars bars your whole life, and then someone gives you some organic Belgian chocolate, from an artisan company, and they've been making it for hundreds of generations, and it's like, I can never eat Mars bars again, like my standard for chocolate has gone way up, So it is the same thing, It is the same thing, actually. We have some standard of enjoyment in this world, but we don't know what we're missing out on, actually. We don't know what we're missing out on. We don't know, how much joy, happiness is waiting for us once we can enter into our spiritual identity, spiritual connection. And so in that prayer to Sanatana Goswami, it's saying that I had no desire to taste the nectar of devotion, right? But my guru is so merciful that he caused me, he made me drink it. He pressed me, pushed me, no, you have to try this, And how merciful, Kripambu dear, he is like an ocean of mercy. Pada dukkha dukhi, has no thought for his own suffering, but only for the suffering of others, right? So how merciful is he? So that is our fortune in life, that we may have some guardians like that, I was thinking about our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, that we could have such a guardian, who captured us in a sense, captured us with his smile.
There's one title of an article or also there's a video of it that Gurudev says about Guru Maharaj. He forcibly let me drink nectar. You remember that?
Yeah,
title?
it's actually about this verse. Yeah, forced to drink nectar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's speaking about this verse in relation to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Yes. Yes, yes. So if we can have some friend, some guardian like that in our life, then we are very fortunate. We are very blessed.
Very fortunate that you came to us and showed us this and talked about this. Very wonderful. And hope you come back soon. Yeah. Because we're very grateful that you spent this time here in London. West London.
I'm very grateful to you all. It's been very, very nice, very, very nice visit, very nourishing visit. And I'm grateful for the friendship and embrace that has been extended to me. You are all also like my guardians, still engaging me here and keeping me in your friendly connection. That is my good fortune. We have some friends who will engage us in some activity that is for our higher good, It's our very great fortune. Last night, was it last night? I think we visited one local friend, and she was sharing, I'm because she hasn't come to the temple for some time or something, and she was saying, I've become very lazy. And I told you, what the secret is? I said that you have to make some commitment. And then even when you don't feel like it, you've already made the commitment. You signed the dotted line. So, because in our, we're always going between one side and the other, right? We have those moments when we feel full of enthusiasm for our spiritual life and our faith is very strong. And then there's other moments when suddenly it doesn't seem very important, it feels very remote, and so many other things are pressing upon us, whether good or bad in the conventional sense. That we're having too much of a good time, or that we're having too much of a bad time, for whatever reason, our spiritual life seems a little irrelevant, right? So this is the secret, actually, that when you're feeling the faith, you're feeling the enthusiasm, you have to sign up for something. You have to sign up at that moment, And then later on, you're like, why did I do that? What was I thinking? It really doesn't feel relevant to me at all. But it's like, oh, too late. You already signed up. Too late. Got to honor the commitment, right? And then so you go on for some time. You just push yourself to do it. And then at a certain point, you feel the enthusiasm again. You're like, oh, thank God. Thank God I stuck out with my commitment. Thank God I wasn't a flake. Now I'm really feeling it again. I understand how important it is, right? Sometimes the souls of this world are referred to as lagu. Right? Lagu means light. Means that we're like a feather in the wind. Sometimes this way, sometimes that way, or sometimes some breeze will come and take us over here, over there, So there's this lightness in our conception, right? But then guru, the meaning of guru is actually heavy. This is the literal translation for guru. So they are heavy in the truth. Heavy, they are fixed in the absolute truth. Their mind is not wavering this way, that way. They're not being pulled by the mind and the senses. But they are fixed in the highest truth, right? And so we want to tie ourselves to them, right? Then we have some rudder, as it is said. Like we may be, the analogy is also given like we're a little boat lost at sea, right? But Guru is like the captain or the rudder that's guiding us and keeping us on track towards our destination. So otherwise, if we are following our own mind, then we can go this way, that way, anyway, right? So if we can tie ourselves to someone or something, that will keep us on track towards our higher destination, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Our Gurudev also talked about, when you're training a horse, that you have to let the horse go a little free sometimes, right? You can't have like such a strict program, So we also need to have some illusion of freedom sometimes, right? Some space to let our minds go this way, that way. But if we have some central grounding place, you can say, we can't go too far, Just like sometimes, owners may let their dogs, they have some faithful dog, right? And the dog may run off and sniff this over here and over there for some time. But they have attachment for their master. They'll come back eventually, right? They'll come back eventually. I'm trying to remember where it was. Oh, it was here, actually. Who was it? They rescued a dog. Do you remember who that was? It was like quite some years ago, and they were out on some. Was it Maheshwari? I think it was Tarit and Maheshwari maybe. That they were walking in some country area, and there was a dog running loose, and they thought they rescued the dog. So they took the dog home, and they had the dog in their little London flat for a few days. And then they were like desperately trying to trace the owner. I think there was some collar. And then finally they found the owner after a lot of trouble, and they like reported the dog at different, agencies. And then it turned out that, the dog actually had a loving owner, and they just let them run free for a little bit, because they're so tight with their dog, it was okay, they were cool with that. And the dog was going to run back to their master, But that lady, I can't remember exactly who it was, but then she was feeling so bad, like she was trying to help, but actually she made everything very complicated. And so also, our guardians are not forcing anything upon us, right? We need some space to run free. But if we have some main loving point of connection, then we always come back, right? We always come back. And our Gurudev was very much like that. He didn't like to force anything upon anyone. He didn't even like to ask anyone anything, But he liked to give space for people to come and volunteer and offer themselves and naturally grow in their attachment and their spiritual desire. Because, another thing we have to remember is that all of this is actually, it's not that this is something we don't have, right? It's not that this is something outside of ourselves that we have to collect, right? But it's actually our own wealth. It's actually already our own treasure. It is already within us. But our teachers, our spiritual guardians, they're simply trying to help us unlock our own wealth, right? What we already have. So that can be encouraging for us sometimes, right? It is all within us. It is all there.
Vishakha, can you tell something about what is then hindering us in the mind? I think that is that wealth of the soul in us is the blockage that is in the mind, covering the coverings, like that we cannot feel it, or that the journey just to go on and appreciate that layer what is covering it in the mind. Can you tell something about that?
What is
like why we cannot appreciate it so much? the wealth that is already in us.
Well, what would be your answer?
I think our mind is full of thoughts, and many thoughts are not even true. So we have a load of blockage in the mind, but does not let us free go happily to the temple, continue doing the service, improving our progress in God consciousness and Krishna consciousness. That there are layers of unnecessary blockages that are in our mind covering, and they're not even true. So we are repeating certain things in our mind, in our daily life, which are a lie, which are not even true. And that has a big impact. So how can we get rid of that?
Well, I think we have to be sympathetic with ourselves. We shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. And it will be a gradual process, right? Because the thing is that, yes, these things are not true, but they're also true in a sense, right? They are very true for us at present. And it is simply that they are a temporary truth. Right? It is a temporary reality that we are experiencing. So we need time, we need mercy, we need affection, we need good association, right? Good company. If we can have some good friends and good association around us, everything is so much easier, and it is a joyful process actually. Rehabilitation, can be a joyful thing, in the right company. So, and it is, it is a long journey, right? It is not a journey of a few days. There's no instant fixed program, right? But it will take time. I actually did have some questions. Actually, Shreyash, our dear brother here, he collected quite a long list of questions from anonymous contributors. And I won't get through all of them, but maybe I'll address the first question at least, and we can continue the rest in some of our online meetings. So the first, I was told also that the questions were ordered in a very specific way too. It was requested they be asked in this order. So the first question was, what does service to Krishna mean in day-to-day life when you can't always be at the temple? What does service to Krishna mean in day-to-day life when you can't always be at the temple? Well, I mean, ultimately we want to remember we're trying to enter into a whole transformation of consciousness, right? And we want to enter that consciousness where we're always in Krishna consciousness, we're always in God consciousness, whether we're at the temple or we're not at the temple, and whether we're, in the company of like-minded souls or whether we're in the company of rather unsavory characters. Whatever the case may be, that we can remain fixed in our faith, right? That is the goal. And ultimately service is not an activity but it is also a state of consciousness, right? It's not just something that we're doing with our hands or with our brains even, but it's something, it's actually it's based on a deep vision of the heart, right? And so, obviously, we try as much as possible to support our local centers, our local temples. These are very important for us, especially in our current state of consciousness, right? We need some focal point, right? We need some place where we can come and hear this message, right? We have some place to go where we can be reminded of our higher purpose, and we have some place where we can come and meet with an actual manifestation of the Lord in this world, the deity form, and offer some service to that higher plane. That is very, very valuable for us. Because this is actually a tricky point, right? And this is also tied in with the next question. The next question was about initiation. What's the importance of initiation? And the significance of these places is that it's like an embassy, or you can say like a portal, like a channel that connects us with the spiritual world. And obviously we can connect at any time, any place, right? But these places are special because they have a connection with great saints, right? They have a connection with those who are great devotees of the Lord. And that's actually, because our goal is not just to have like a general relationship with God, but we want to have like a deep heart, family relationship with the Lord, And so when we make a connection with those who are already very close with the Lord, then we're automatically accepted, right? It's like, for example, I always used to use the analogy of the Queen of England, but now we don't have, it's very sad we don't have the Queen of England. Somehow the King of England doesn't have the same ring to it, But we'll just say the Queen of England. Say you want to meet the Queen of England, right? You're automatically a subject just by being a British citizen, right? You're automatically a subject of the Queen. So you have some relationship with her, right? But let's say you're best friends with her bodyguard, Then you're, and that bodyguard says something about you to the Queen. Then she's automatically going to accept you, right? Let's say you want to be the gardener in the Queen's garden. You could write her a letter directly, as one of her subjects. Oh, dear Queen of England, I'm a citizen in your country. I would like to be your gardener. Will you please accept me? Right? She doesn't, she'll think, oh, he's a nice person, but I don't really know that much about him. Can I trust him? But let's say you're best friends with her bodyguard, and you go to the bodyguard, oh, can you please recommend me? I'd like to be the gardener. And the bodyguard will tell the Queen, and she'll automatically, yes, of course. I love my bodyguard, I trust him, of course, no problem. So it is something like that, right? We all automatically have a relationship with the Lord. He's our source, He's our creator. It is a natural thing. But there's only so far we can go with that. But if we have a relationship with one who is already close, who's already been accepted as part of the family, if we get a recommendation from that person, then we're automatically in. There's no, you can bypass all the bureaucracy and all the security checks and background checks, and you can bypass all of that. You're automatically in because you're trusted by someone that she already trusts, right? It is like that, And so the significance of these temples is that they have been they have been established by persons who are awake in that higher plane. Right? Anybody can go and open a temple. Anybody can open a temple. Anyone can go and buy a deity from the market, at least if you're in India. It's very easy. Few rupees, You know, you can go and buy a Krishna deity for yourself. It's not difficult. Anyone can go and do that. But you know, these temples are not like that. They have been opened by the will of these great souls, right? And so what they've actually, and they don't need to open temples. You know, they don't need more management problems to deal with, you know. But what they're actually doing is making an excuse for us to have an opportunity to come and offer ourselves. They're creating an opportunity. You know, just like a child, oh, mommy, I want to help you, mommy. I'm sure every parent has experienced that. You know, oh, mommy, I want to help you. You know, they see their mom cleaning or something. Oh, mommy, I want to help you. And actually, the child's just going to get in the way, right? But no, you can't say that. You can't say to the child, look, you're just going to cause more trouble. You know, you're not going to help me. You know, just let me go lock yourself in your room. You know, I mean, maybe some moms say that, but I hope not. But no, the mom has to be merciful. She has to go and buy the little toy broom, right? And give the toy broom to her son and say, oh, here, my darling. Oh, you're helping me so much. Thank you so much. Actually, the child is causing more trouble and more work for her. Then she has to go and clean up after the child's mess. But our gurus, they're actually so merciful. You know, they don't need to open temples. They don't need to make all this fuss. But they're creating this situation so that we have an opportunity to come and learn how to become givers, how to become lovers of God, how to become dedicating agents, right? And they're creating an opportunity for us to come and hear the message, hear the teachings, and to grow into receiving our own spiritual wealth. That's the significance of these places. So yes, there's a difference, you know, generally speaking, when we're doing something, you know, doing spiritual practice in a generic way on our own, as opposed to coming and actually making a contribution at a place that has been opened by the will of a higher soul. There's a difference there because of that link, that connection, right? But at the same time, as this person is pointing out, we don't have the opportunity to always be at the temple, go to the temple. We want to live a life of always being in service. So how can I do that? And as I said at the beginning, ultimately we want to live in a broader consciousness where we're always in service consciousness, whether we're in the temple, whether we're outside of the temple. So then how do we do that? You know, we want to think that we are offering our entire existence. That everything, it's not only that we offer things that we have, right? But we want to offer our hearts, right? We want to offer our very selves. Atma Nivedan, right? This is the Sanskrit expression. Atma Nivedana. We want to offer our very self. And that is ultimately what Krishna wants, right? He doesn't need anything that we have. You know? But he wants the love in our heart. You know, that is what he wants. And so we can begin our day like that, you know. We can begin our day from the moment we wake up. And we know throughout the day we're going to be thinking about 1,000,001 other things and maybe doing lots of other things. But we can begin our day, my Lord. I'm offering myself to you. Please, you bring me to you. Right? We are ultimately depending on being brought. We're ultimately depending on the grace that will capture us and that will bring us up. We can't actually depend upon our own strength, you know, because we are, as we said, right? We are lagu. We are light. We can go in any direction. So we are praying for grace that will capture us, you know, that will help us, that will bring us closer. And so at least we can try to begin our day like that. That please, I'm offering myself to you. You know, our Gurudev mentioned if we can start our day like that with some prayer, with some spiritual meditation, some offering, some chanting, you know, that will actually set the tone for a whole day. You know, so that is something that is very, very helpful. And we want to try to enter that meditation that we want to offer everything, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? Yad karoshi, yad ajnashi, yad juhosi dadasi, yad. whatever you have, whatever you eat, whatever you do, whatever you offer in charity, do it all as an offering unto me. We had a nice discussion this morning. Was it this morning? Or was it last night? I think with Pedro, maybe last night in the program. We're trying to enter into this meditation that actually we are caretakers. We're caretakers of the Lord's property, right? So whatever I have, I'm just taking care of it, All of my family members, I don't own them. They're not my property. They're not bound by this temporary relationship that they have with me, right? But they actually have their own higher purpose and higher relationship with the divinity. And I actually want to serve them. I want to serve them in their relationship of service with the Absolute, right? So not that everyone around me should be an object of my own whims and desires, but rather I want to enter into the serving consciousness of helping others in their relationship with the Absolute. Of course, they may not want that relationship, and we're not going to force it upon them. But we're honoring the potentiality of that, right? We're honoring the potentiality of everyone's potential relationship with the divinity. And if they also start to awaken that interest, we're there to support them, right? We're not going to pressure them. But we're ready for that, and we're trying to see them in that consciousness. So it's actually this spirit of recognizing that everything, it belongs to the Lord, right? I also belong to Him. And anything that happens to come into my possession, it's really just in my care, right? Huh? Oh, I thought you were like doing a time check.
No, I'm not.
I was like, oh no. Yes, everything, right? So, it is a deep consciousness that will naturally awaken within us, right? The food that comes to us, it is, we will automatically think, oh, this is the Lord's grace, There's one place where Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our teacher, he speaks about different ways in which different levels of devotees will take their food. And he says, like most generally, it is recommended that we offer our food, right, to some form of the Lord, a deity or a picture. We have some type of like physical offering, as is happening. Oh, it probably happened earlier, and now they're getting ready for Arti. And then you're taking that prasad. You offer that to the Lord, and then we call that food grace, right? Prasad. It is the Lord's grace. We offered it to Him. He's mercifully giving it back to us, right? And it has been enriched with His mercy, His grace. So this is the general recommendation. This is most helpful for us. And then we're trying to eat in that consciousness. Oh, this is the Lord's grace. Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, but a higher level than that, middle class devotee, he says that, they may be out and about, and then whatever they need to eat, then the food that they get, they will mentally offer that, right? So there's the physical offering, and then little more developed is the mental offering. That, oh, now this food has come, I will offer that to Krishna within my mind, and then I will take it as his prasad. But then he said the first class, the highest level, Uttam Bhakta, Uttam level devotee, they don't even offer anything. Why? Because they're automatically seeing that everything is prasad. They're automatically, naturally thinking everything belongs to the Lord. There's no need to go and offer it. They're so deeply in that consciousness that it's already His. And now it's coming to me. It is automatically His grace, His prasad. So they are directly honoring His mercy. So it is very interesting enlightening to consider these different types of approaches, right? But anyhow, in our own daily lives, we can, whatever food comes, we have to eat a sandwich at work or whatever it may be. We can try to offer that in our minds, right? And in this way, our lives will gradually become more and more, deeply connected with this spirit of offering, right? it is mentioned in our scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, these different levels of, there's also description there, different levels of devotees. And it mentions the most primary level devotee, that when they come to the temple, they may behave very perfectly, right? But then as soon as they go out, their social life is something completely different, right? Their social life is not informed or influenced by their so-called spiritual ideals, right? So there's a big gap, you could say. But then the more that one matures in their spiritual identity, then the more that their spiritual ideals will inform and color, right, every aspect of their lives, their social life, their friends, their hobbies, or whatever it may be. Everything will become more and more permeated by that sensual aspiration, right? But, to answer simply, we can say it's helpful if we have some structure in our lives that supports our connection, our spiritual connection. At least when we wake up, or when we go to sleep at night, we have some, even if it's just 15 minutes, 10 minutes of reading something, chanting something, hearing something that will help to realign us, right? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he used to say, religion means proper adjustment. Religion means proper adjustment. Because we're living in a world of maladjustment. Everything's maladjusted here. And so we constantly need to try and bring ourselves back into alignment, back into adjustment. And so if we can start our day like that, or end our day like that, or at least once in the day, tune in, connect, get some perspective on what's the actual nature of things, what's our actual identity, what's our actual purpose, right? Then that will really help to keep us on track, right? To what is really our highest goal in life. And if we can continue like that, and this is what we call sadhana, right? Our life of practice, regulated practice. Then sometimes it may feel more like just a practice, something that we have to do. Other moments we will feel so much natural enthusiasm, inspiration, right? As we discussed earlier. But anyhow or other, this is our program until the day we die, right? We know that this is our highest need, our highest purpose, and whether we feel like it or not, we know this is the medicine, right? And the more that we advance, the more that our own treasure starts to awaken, it will feel less like medicine, it will feel more like nectar. Well, maybe we'll stop there so we don't get too late. But thank you all so much for your kind attention. It's been so lovely to meet with all of you and receive your merciful affection and your inquiry and blessings.
Sriyukta Vishakha Devi Dasi.
Jai.
Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. We'll have arati.
Because I don't know who's that.
Minus is
Jai Sri Krishna. Jai.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Bhakti Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaura Hare
Yeah. I had a lesson. One time a day. One of the students came on the
She's not well today.
Well, I was thinking he's drunk. I can see the eyes are drunk. So I'm sitting close. I'm sneaking as well. No.